Hello guys, how are you? I hope everybody is having a very amazing day. I am also having an amazing day. By the way, before starting the video, I am feeling a little cold and I need my sweater, but where is my sweater? The fact is when I take my cold shower, I reset Quran, then I start my video, right? Start taking this podcast, recording this podcast. Whenever I took shower, I don't feel any cold. When I recite Quran Sharif, I don't feel any cold. Whenever I start doing this podcast, whenever I start recording this podcast, I suddenly feel very cold. The moment I press the red button to start the whole podcast, I feeling cold. I do not know. I just feel very cold. So that's why I am right now. So from now, what I'm gonna do is I always keep my sweater just by my side so that whenever I feel cold, I can wear it, right? So yeah, that's all about it, guys. Today's podcast will be not that longer. I'm just starting this podcast and recording this podcast because it was in my to-do list. Number one. Number second is I am not doing podcasts. I have not I have not been doing podcast for quite so long. Probably for 3 to 5 days that I have not been able to doing the podcast. That's why I am right now recording the podcast, unless I do not have the mindset to do that. But yes, I can do podcast because I just want to. I can do it because I have been doing it for so long, right? You guys have been listening to my podcast for so long time. Whatever it is, I call it podcast. Podcast means something that you are speaking of you are speaking something very intellectual. You are providing people very intellectual stuff. But this my new podcast, it is not about knowing people something that is life changing, that is very intellectual, that is very knowledge gain stuff, knowledge gain podcast. This podcast is all about uh, letting people know what is happening in my life. It is something blog. You guys have been watching blogs on YouTube. Also, you guys have been reading blog on Facebook, on Google. But this is the podcast blog where I speak to my perspective in my life. I speak about my perspective. I speak about my life. I speak about what's happening, what's not happening in my life, or what's my plan, what's my things. So that is all about in this podcast. That's why I call it not a podcast like podcast. I call it like blog podcast, where I am sharing my experience with you, and you guys have been listening to it. And of course, I have getting a lot of appreciation for my blog podcast, where I have been sharing my ideas and thoughts and my regular life with you guys. And whenever I do not feel good, I say it, like I don't feel good, I'm not feeling like I will not be able to make this podcast any longer. Usually I make podcasts like 16 to 70 minutes, but like nowadays it is something like today it will be like 5 minutes to like 10 minutes podcast. It is not usually my time. My time is making the podcast for 15 to 20 minutes. That's the thing. But yeah, sometimes you do not feel good, but you have to do it anyway because it's your job. It's This is how you make money. and and this is where you feel good about yourself. So I have been listening to a podcast the other day. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the person was saying, those people who I love art, follow your passion. And I followed my passion. I get into art stuff, right? So when you get into art, when you get into like singing, if you follow your passion, it is not something like you always feel good when you are drawing something or when you are singing something, right? It's not possible all the time to be feel good about what you are doing, or to feel good about your passions type thing. It is sometimes it can be monotonous, sometimes it can be very hectic, sometimes it can be difficult. It's something that, oh, I don't want to do that, but I have to do it anyway because it's my job, it's my profession, I have to do it. And if your profession and your passion matches in a one place, then something good can happen. Of course, there is no alternative of it. So this is what we always understand, like what we are like doing, or what so it's completely understandable. Number one. Number second is, it is okay to feel not good, and it is okay to do a thing when you are not feeling good. Because if you always depend on your feelings, you will not be able to do anything. Those people who have invented lights, and he tried 10,000 times, do you think he loves to take the experiment for 10,000 times? No, right? It is monotonous, it is heartbreaking, it was heartbreaking, it was monotonous, it was hectic, it was like a lot of obstacles in the middle of 10,000 times. Of course, how how many times, like how many how much, like how thousand times he thought that it's not gonna work, but he did it anyway and it worked. And this is what you have to, this is what the thing, guys, you have to think like, probably you may think that this is not gonna work, this is how it, probably it's not the right way to do, but you have to do it anyway unless you find a better option. But if you get the better option, you can move on, but you have to see the last like this is the last point. After this there is no other way, and then you can switch the way and go for the better way. But whenever you are running towards the way, towards the tunnel, make sure that you have plan B. Like always think about plan B. If it doesn't work, I do not sink, I do not drown, I can switch my path and do a better job. So think about like this way, right? And yeah, this is all about it, guys. This is the podcast for today. I'm feeling very good that I'm in podcast. I have done this podcast today, and I will see you in the next video. Take it easy, man. Peace.